Hello, everybody. So today we are here and we want to talk to you about the spirit side of COVID-19, the kind of soul seekers' take on where we're going with this and how we're dealing with it and helping those around us to deal with it. So I am one of your soul guides, Linda Krause Barnett. Welcome.
And I am your other soul guide, Patricia Ribeiro Wolfson. This looks good.
It looks good. I like it.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Marissa Wagenberg.
And we're so glad to have you here with us today. What we wanted to kind of talk about, and I'm just going to introduce it and let them kind of take the lead, is it's one thing to come at this with your mind and to let this part of your, self, your brain dictate how you see things. But keep in mind that a lot of the fear and a lot of the worry and a lot of the stories, and limited beliefs are coming from up here. So is this really the best place to get your information? And is this really the place where you want to be dealing with the issues that are coming up about this pandemic and about this virus? So we're looking at it from the spirit side, from the heart-centered side. So what happens when you take these issues and you dip down into your heart and you instead try to look at this from a place of peace, a place of unity, a place of love, and you look for your answers there. So what can that look like? And that's what we're going to talk to you about today.
That's exactly it. And I think that, there's so much unknown and people are scouring the internet. And I know, my husband, as we talked about already this week, who's sick with the virus, before when he was in really rough shape and even still now, he's been scouring the internet for answers. And the truth is that nobody really knows what is happening. Nobody really knows what this virus is bringing on a biological level, on a physiological level, how we're processing it. There's so much unknown. But one of the things that has helped both him and me and our family in trying to get through this has been our faith and our trust. And it's really easy to have faith when everything is going well. It's really easy to have trust when you wake up in the morning and you go off to work and, everything seems to be going hunky-dory. But when you're faced with something like this, and as we've discussed over and over again, and never in our lifetime have we ever faced something like this before, when you're in this unknown, unprecedented territory, it's really hard to get into trust and faith. But this is when it's needed the most. And I felt
I feel like the visual that comes to my mind right now is I picture this boat that, like, normally when the boat is in calm waters, it's a pretty decent boat, right? You're like, this is a great boat. And then you take that water into the middle of a hurricane, you take that boat into the middle of like the ocean in the middle of a hurricane, and your boat starts to feel small and rickety. You're like, there's no way my boat can make it in this storm. And I think the tools that looking at this from a spiritual perspective give you is the tools to kind of anchor the ship down and give the ship some balance so that it's going to be rough for a while, but I'm going to make it because I've got I'm anchored to something and all I have to do is just kind of ride this out, but you don't feel like you're going to tip over. That's kind of the analogy I keep getting.
That's a great analogy. And I really love, the thing is in this, when you're looking for faith and when you're looking for trust, you can't always do it on your own. Sometimes you need to go outside of yourself. It's really tough. And this is why, religious institutions exist. It's why, spiritual circles exist. It's why Linda and I as soul seekers exist for each other, because it's really important that you have other people in your life that can reflect back to you the faith and trust that maybe you are not feeling. And I really wanted to bring on one of my dearest, most amazing friends. And we've recently become much closer than ever before. We've known each other for a long time, but this year I have really counted on her, and especially over this pandemic, because she's been such a strong anchor for me in keeping me focused on the spiritual aspect. So we've had little prayer circles that we've been doing every day, and we talked about it recently that I've prayed more in the last in the last 2 weeks, in the last month. I've prayed more than I prayed almost through all of Catholic school. and, um, and it's because Marissa has been with me, encouraging me to be like, let's do these healing prayers. And the healing prayers have not just been for Scott to get better, but the healing prayers have been for us to get through this, for the planet to get through this, for everybody that we know who needs healing, for the highest and greatest good of all. We've been doing it with that intention. And so, I just want to say thank you. And I know, and I've told Marissa this already, I know Scott is super grateful, who has also suddenly become very prayerful in all of this experience, where I'm sure he had no intention of being as spiritual as he's become. Of course, he's, I'm his wife, so I've kept him inching towards the spiritual direction for a while, but now more so than anything, because this is what you need to turn to when things look bleak. It's like, what else can you do? You can either anchor yourself in unknown truth, or you can anchor yourself in an unknown faith, like in what you can feel. And one of the things that I really believe it transformed Scott's journey was Marissa's visualization of Saint Germain's violin. It's Saint Germain's, right?
Saint Germain, yeah. I mean, I don't really know if that's the right way to pronounce it, but that's how I say Saint Germain. Yeah.
Saint Germain's
Saint
violet
Germain,
flame.
violet flame. Yeah. Yep.
And so why don't you tell us a little bit about, because I really loved how it came to you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
tell us a little bit about the background of how this came to be, because then you
Sure.
texted me, we have to do this. And I was like, whatever,
Sure.
I'll do anything at this point.
Sure. Sure. So I guess it all started a couple of years ago. I see a holistic doctor. And when I started working a lot with angels, he had mentioned to me that there's this special oil. I will totally get the information, so if you want to post it later, you can. But there's a church that they give away this oil for free. It's Saint Raphael oil, or Archangel Raphael oil. And there's 100 people that pray over this oil. And in order to produce this oil, it takes all day. And it has healed many people of these miraculous things. And so my holistic doctor had told me to get a bottle for me and get a bottle for him at the time. And just a little background on me, I'm like a Jewish girl. I was never taught how to pray other than in Hebrew, which I never really understood. And so I get this, oil, and it comes with, I forget even the name of the prayer, but it's, it is not Jewish at all.
It's the Apostles' Creed.
Like, okay.
One of the prayers that comes with it is the Apostles' Creed, which, as a Catholic girl growing up, I mean, I did the Apostles' Creed all the time in church. So I can attest to that. It is not Jewish.
Not Jewish. No. So I got this oil, and I was like, all right, let's give it a try, because, over the course of my spiritual awakening, I am just very open and very spiritual, and I honor every religion out there. And, and I just believe that if it's something that's going to connect you to God or the divine or the universe or spirit or whatever feels good for you to call it, I will give it a try. And so when, I heard that Scott was sick and he really wasn't doing well, I was like, all right, let's try this oil. So I sent, Trish a picture of the prayer, and I said, okay, I'm going to represent Scott. I'm going to put the oil on myself, and we're going to say this prayer, and we're going to see what happens. So we started doing that. And I said, all right, I'm also going to send him healing. And I, was sending him IET and Reiki, and, I don't even know what I was sending him. Whatever, was coming out of me, I was sending him. And then one day I was doing yoga, And I just had this knowing that we needed to start visualizing the violet flame from Saint Germain. And we could use that visualization to actually burn the virus out of Scott. And once we visualized it, being burned out of Scott, that the earth would swallow it and transmute it into light. And I think it was the same day that one of my friends had told me that in her meditations, she's been seeing that we have to use universal law, to basically tell the virus that it is not welcome here and it has to go. And because of universal law, we are only allowed to have whatever energy we have. We have to give it permission. So if we take that permission away from the virus, we can say, no, you are not welcome here. And so it was that night when we did that, there was crazy stuff coming out. It was a pretty intense healing. And it just felt really, really powerful.
It was super. I remember because we were messaging. We've done all this prayer and on the healing, through our messages back and forth. And that day, from a biological standpoint or physiological standpoint, Scott was in the hospital and he was receiving already the medication. He had been given anti-malaria pills and he was on something else. And they gave him an experimental trial drug, which was Salumid. It's like anti-inflammatory that they use for arthritis patients. And he had a one-time infusion. And it was because he was part of a trial. We didn't know if he was even getting the medication. I don't think we actually know whether or not he actually got the medication, but it was like the same day he got the infusion. And then we also did the violet flame meditation and we sent it, what Marissa had said to me about her experience, her healing while she was doing the healing and the things that came up for her. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Scott, who then told me that he basically just repeated it over and over again and continually visualized the violet flame. And, we're now talking over 2 weeks of fever, of not doing well, of like really touch and go for a while. And the next day, and I'm just as willing to believe that it was the prayer as I am to believe that it was the infusion of medication or a combination of all of the above. And he feels the same. It's like, who cares what it was? But all I know is that the next morning he wrote to me for the first time and said, I feel better. And I had been waiting for him to say that for weeks. Like every day I asked him, how are you feeling? And every day he was like, terrible, terrible, terrible. And so, it was transformational, I believe, for him. That whole experience, it was transformational for me. And if nothing else, it made me feel like I was doing something. Like Marissa and I can't speak for you, but I think to some extent you felt that way too.
100%.
That it's like that we're participating in some way. And if nothing else, we're raising the collective vibration, whether it's working and it actually was the prayer that healed him or didn't, like who cares? It's not hurting anybody. And it's the one thing that we can ground ourselves in is that faith and trust. And it's like, okay, well, let's do the prayer. We now sent it to Linda and Linda's now going to start doing the prayer with us.
100%.
Yeah,
and I feel like, the facts, there aren't any facts. So we can't root in the facts because there are very little facts. And we can't root in the fear because that takes us down the rabbit hole. So there's like, what other F words can, and so it's like the F word of feeling and of faith. Those F words are the words that need to replace fact and fear, because we can root in feelings. We can root in faith. And that is a place that if it doesn't, we're not getting answers from either side right now. So the best we can do is tap in to the things that make us feel good, to the things that give us hope, to the things that kind of give us life and hope and potential. Those are words that make you feel like you can conquer. Those are feelings and words that make you feel like there's this higher power and it's coming on this ride with you and it's got you and everything's going to be okay. But, you know, facts right now aren't doing that for us, and fear isn't doing that for us. So it's like, why choose that? You know, there's so little benefit from it at this point. And it's
That's
not,
right.
you know, unfortunately, like these science people who, you know, and I don't think that science has to be chosen over spirituality. I think they coexist. But at this point, there's very little science, but there's a shit pot of evidence and spiritual grounding. And we just need to believe in that because it's available to us when nothing else is. And that's where we get our answers.
Absolutely. And I even think, like, what I've heard, you know, anyone who's like deep into science, that's where the intersection happens of science and spirituality, is like the really, you know, the real science brains, you know, like, I mean, look at Einstein and physics. I mean, like, the closer you get to truly understanding science, you understand that you know nothing. And in fact, that there is a whole element that can be attributed to, you know, what spiritualists believe, and there's so much unknown.
And I think that crossroad of science and spirituality, one of the, you know, I think like mortality, you're facing your own mortality brings you to that crossroad. You know, it's a good like super highway to get to that juncture.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. We all have to face that at some point. We all have to face our own mortality. And I know that that's when you have your biggest spiritual awakening. And I think I said this the last time you guys had me on, is that spiritual awakenings are not comfortable and they don't feel good, because if you're comfortable,
you're not growing.
You're not going to shift. Yeah. So it hurts. And, you know, and this is a really big, uncomfortable, you know, thing that everybody is experiencing together, you know, and it's really difficult, you know, even if you have your spirituality, you know, you can have moments where it feels really scary, but when you have that, to turn to, I say there's like a return time. It's like you step out of trust for a little while, you have your moment of fear, you have your moment of, you know, freak out, and then the return time back into a moment of trust, it keeps getting less and less and less. And that's what I know is keeping me sane, is that, okay, so when I step out, I can step back in much faster than I used to be able to. And I don't know how I would have coped with this 10 years ago. I think I was talking to somebody the other day and I was like, 10 years ago, I don't think I would have, I think I would have freaked out, you know, but I had my awakening and I have, you know, all of my spiritual tools and my guides and everything to help me get through this. And that's what I wish for everybody who's going through this. I hope that this is the good that will come out of it for you, is that you'll find your connection, your divine connection.
And, you know, somebody said something yesterday. I don't know. I'm starting to like really blur where I get my information from, because I'm like, but I heard like, you know, none of us get out of this alive, and we're always like, you know, to some degree, getting into a vehicle is you have to put a lot of faith into getting into a vehicle and going, you know, 80 miles an hour on a highway full of other cars. Like, we put our faith and trust in so many activities that we do, but we've just automated ourselves. We've just driven on autopilot for so long. And this came into our lives and kind of brought an awareness to so much that like is actually, you know, not on a global scale, but truthfully, we step into risk and danger so often on a normal day, but it's just that we haven't been programmed to stop and say a prayer and say, I hope this car ride takes me where I'm going safely. I hope that, you know, and some people do, don't get me wrong, but I know I have been like kind of driving myself on autopilot where I don't stop and appreciate when I get to my destination. On a normal day prior to this, have I ever stopped and said, thank you, I'm really glad I got here safely, or, you know, I'm really glad I get to go outside with my kids, I'm so thankful for the day at the park. It's just an awakening of awareness as well. Like, be aware to each breath, each day, each gift, each time that you survive something that could have gone a different way, you know? And that's a lesson I hope stays when the virus is gone.
It reminds me, as you're saying, people being grateful, for like even the little things that, being grateful to arrive somewhere and all that stuff. It reminds me of my grandmother. And I was telling, I think maybe both of you, I said at some point that my grandmother is laughing in heaven right now.
Because you're praying.
Because I'm praying on a daily basis, and she's probably like, "Oh, Celia, I'm so proud of you." Like, she must be so excited, because she was that woman that would like pray all day. Like, everything was, was an opportunity to give thanks, like everything. And this is a woman who, she had a, rough life. She didn't get married until 27, and my grandfather was abusive, and that was like the only example of love she had in her life, in terms of like, with sharing your life with somebody. But she never lost faith, and she never, like, she still believed in love, and she still believed in happiness, and she was just that woman that was grateful for whatever came her way. And I know that she's up there right now, and she's like infusing me with faith and trust, and so proud that I've now taken to not only praying, but dragging my children into the praying with me. And they're also doing it, because they feel like they're doing something too. And there is a different intention and purpose behind the praying, I think, than there was when I was young. And it was like, I went to Catholic school, and you'd go to Catholic school, you'd go to church, and you prayed because you had to. It was your obligation. And this is not an obligation. This is like, I want to add this into the world. I want to, give my contribution to raising the collective vibration. I want to give thanks to the angels and to Jesus and to, the powers.
And can you imagine if even after this is long gone, we continue that practice, what it does for the collective?
Yes, exactly.
Not to subside into like, oh, well, we're back to normal. Like, I don't have time for that shit anymore, but to maintain like that, because I think there's like this, you ask, like, when you're in your moments of desperation and you feel so deeply, but it's so easy to forget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we can collectively work on. And maybe that will be, something that, like, you can get together with your friends and send each other the reminder. I know Marissa will be reminding me, I'm sure. I'll remind Linda, and so we'll do this.
For sure.
Marissa, do you have like the I know we talked about the prayer that we said, but do you, hold on a second. Okay.
He got the look.
I'm like, no, I'm talking right now. Homeschooling. That's all that is.
It's Sunday.
It is, I know. So what I wanted to ask you is if you
Sunday
would share with us like what you recommended for Scott to say and what you recommend. And I know you talked about it briefly, but if you just like lead us in a rendition of the prayer, I think it might be helpful for anyone who's listening.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, sure. So, all right. So, before you do this, you just want to sit somewhere, get comfortable, close your eyes, and we'll take a few deep breaths. Breathe in all the way down into your stomach. Let your stomach expand, and slowly release the air out. And do that one more time. So breathe in all the way down to your stomach. Let your stomach expand, and then slowly release the air out. And you're just going to visualize a beautiful violet flame of Saint Germain. And if you know somebody who is sick with the virus, you can intend this for them, or you can even just intend it for anybody who is sick right now, even on Earth. So you're just going to visualize the flame burning out the virus. It's an incredibly powerful tool. And just visualize this beautiful violet flame burning this virus until there is nothing left inside of anybody who is suffering with the virus. And then the earth is going to rise up and swallow the virus down and take the virus and transmute it into beautiful, beautiful white light. Because even things that are dark, their true core is light, and sometimes they just forget. So we want to make sure that you're transmuting this virus into light. And then after you have a chance to visualize this beautiful violet flame burning the virus out, being transmuted into light, I want you to get in touch with your own inner warrior. And this is where your own strength comes from and your power. And I want you to tell the virus that it is not allowed in your energy field anymore and it needs to go. That because of universal law, it has to leave. It has no choice. This is the way that the universe works. So really get in touch with your power and your warrior side and send the virus away. I know the first time that I did this, there were some choice words that came out of my mouth. So if you feel that rising up and anger inside of you, you use that to banish the virus away from you and tell it to get lost. And, you know, take a few minutes to just let that wash over you and feel the power of that, because in a time where you can feel so helpless, you have so much more power than you realize. So just take a moment and send the virus away. And then bathe yourself in a beautiful golden light of protection. Just let it cover your whole body and know that you are safe and protected at all times by the divine. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes. And you can make that as long or as short as you want to. You can literally do it in 1 minute, you know, every morning before you go to bed. You know, and if you do have the virus, I would encourage you to do that multiple times throughout the day if you can. Or if you know anybody who's suffering with it, just do the visualization for them and pass it along to them.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I mean, I appreciated it when you originally told me. I know Scott appreciated it, and he has been visualizing that violet flame burning the crap out of that virus. You know, and I mean, you know, as I said, it's hard to say exactly what is helping, but I know that every day there's progress every day. And if nothing else, his spirits are so much better than they were before. And I think that part of that is attributed to this, you know, all of his energetic focus being on and being able to beat this. And I think that's such an important part of healing for everybody right now is to not focus on the despair, but really to focus on the hope and that we're going to get through this. And this is a way to, like, you know, visualize how you and the powers that be can help you get through this.
That was beautiful.
That was awesome.
Yeah, and if I could just say, oh, thank you. I just want to say that, you know, think about all of the miracles, miraculous healings that have occurred when people set their mind to something. And it's very easy to get caught up in the facts and the figures and what the doctors are telling you, and it could scare the crap out of you. You know, but in that moment, you have a choice, because our thoughts can create reality. And, you know, if you can just get in touch with your own power and say, you know what? I'm going to be the other statistic. I'm going to be, you know, they tell me I don't have a chance. I'm going to shock the hell out of them. You know, it comes, especially when you can align your thoughts with that. And when you could bring the divine into it, that's when miracles
I love everything about
happen.
that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Thank you so much. Thank you so
you
much.
so
Thank
much.
you guys. Thank you.
This has been super helpful. I think you should actually create that Saint Germain meditation so that you can send it to people, even like just you
Okay.
walking people through. That's my suggestion. I'm giving you things to do.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll do
And
it.
you can totally use the Soul Seekers platform to do it, girl.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
thank
We'll
you.
send it, if you do put
you.
something like that together, then we'll send it through
Okay.
our list and let everybody who can
Okay.
get it, because
Thank
let's
you.
all think of
Awesome.
this. Let's
Yeah,
all
thank you.
defeat
Thank you
this
so
thing.
much.
Thank you, Marissa, for being you.
Absolutely. Yes. Aw,
Mm.
thank you.
And thank you for watching us. We are so excited that you were able to join us for this short time. And if you haven't subscribed already to our channel, please make sure you subscribe, ring the bell, and you can be informed of any other videos that we have coming up. We never know exactly what we're going to talk about, but we always have something interesting to say. So I hope you stay tuned.
It's always a surprise to us too.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
we'll see you all soon.
Thank you for being here. Bye.
Bye.